Saints season preview. Will the New Orleans Saints' dominant defense carry New Orleans to the NFL playoffs? Ladies and gentlemen, off the bench is our backdrop here. Now, everyone I think at this point knows how I feel about the Saints. I've done a million different NFC South previews, Saints previews, and I have never wavered. I have never waffled. I have never pancaked, ladies and gentlemen. I've stayed on the same straight and narrow, okay? Some of these other hombres have kind of waffled. T-Bob has waffled a bit. He's now on the Saints bandwagon. He is seeing the truth. Jacob, I think, is still a little hesitant because of Derek Carr and Dennis Allen, but the fact remains, as the headline proclaims, the Saints probably, they have all the makings of a top 5 defense, top 10 defense. When you have a top 5, top 10 defense, you can only be so bad. Defense travels. If you have a top 5 defense, more than likely you will be in every game. More than likely you will win games you shouldn't win. And more than likely you will absolutely stifle a bad schedule, which the Saints absolutely have a bad schedule. So it's hard to imagine them being too bad. It is easy to imagine them being good. And it is easy to imagine them winning the NFC South and making the playoffs. So let's go ahead and hear what T-Bob, Jacob Hester have to say today. I am going sleeveless, going with the tank. Why? That's why. Okay, here we go.
But we still have to figure out when the time is that we're gonna talk Saints. As they did do a couple moves yesterday, traded for a D lineman, brought in a former All-Pro returner.
God, by the way, Christ, I cannot believe some of the videos being made about this defensive lineman from Washington. I'm seeing 28, 30-minute videos talking about this cat. Good Lord have mercy. I mean, more power to you if you can spend 28 minutes talking about this guy. But, I mean, and the returner that they're talking about, he already was waived. He failed his physical. Ladies and gentlemen, do not get caught up in some of these transactional moves. Do not get caught up in some of these rotational moves. It's absolutely mind-blowing. But I'm not saying he won't be a good player, but I would not write a thesis on how he's the next Aaron Donald.
It's just so unfortunate that the prevailing emotion that I feel when I think you're talking about the Saints is one of just meh. But who knows? Like I'm not someone who is so stubborn as to.
I have a theory, and this is going on a bit of a rabbit hole here. But there's a fallacy in gambling that people gamble to win. I believe that people are addicted to the feeling of losing, and they don't even know it. And this is going to be this is going to be nuts. Okay, this is so out of the box. This is such an advanced theory that it's going to blow some people's minds. When you lose, it brings you together as a fan base. Losing brings you together way more than winning, because winning is fleeting. Winning is very fleeting. If you don't believe me, ask any team that won and then the next year fired their head coach or made a huge trade or whatever. We see it all the time. Nick Sirianni almost got fired the year after going to the Super Bowl. Leicester City, the soccer team over in England, they won the Premier League as the biggest underdog in history. The next year they fired their head coach. Okay? Winning is fleeting. The feeling you feel when you lose is not fleeting. You remember the feeling whenever the Saints got screwed in the NFC title game against the Rams? I sure as hell do. You remember the feeling about the Minnesota Miracle? I sure as hell do. You remember the feeling of losing to the Buccaneers and Tom Brady in the playoffs? I do. You remember the feeling of losing to the Vikings in the playoffs at the Dome with the Kyle Rudolph push? I do. Do you remember the feeling of Foster Moreau dropping the pass against the Jaguars last year? I do. Do you remember the feeling of the Green Bay game? I do. Losing sticks with you. And losing builds a fan base because it's a shared experience. You go through the shared emotion of losing and heartbreak and whatever, and it does bond you together. And I think in a way, the Saints have had so many of those moments over the last couple of years, like the ones I just named, that they kind of don't want to be positive. They kind of want to hold on to this groupthink of, the Saints are ass, this team is mad, Derek Carr is garbage, Dennis Allen's garbage. Because in a subliminal way, they feel like if they don't do that, then they may lose that feeling. And they may lose that. If they say, actually, I think we're going to be pretty good. Actually, I think we're going to be 9-10 wins. People would rather subliminally, would rather have the group think of, this team is ass, fire the coach, quarterback sucks, we need to draft Arch Manning. And they would rather that than the opposite of, yeah, I mean, things are okay. Things are kind of chill. Things are, we're not the best team in the world, but we're not the worst team in the world. And that's where I think this like crazy groupthink of the Saints are horrible is coming from.
To be like, I don't care, I'm not going to watch. Like, I fully hope they prove me wrong. And the NFL proves people wrong all the time, right?
I mean, how crazy is that? Like, he just said it. The Saints won 9 games last year, tied for the division, lost the division on a tiebreaker, dog walked the Buccaneers and the Falcons in their last matchups of the season, fired their offensive coaching staff, brought in a very exciting, new, young, innovative offensive staff, signed Chase Young, drafted Kool-Aid McKinstry, drafted Talise Fuaga. They have playmakers that the fans love, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, top 5 defense, and T-Bob just said that the predominant narrative is, I'm not going to watch. Like, that is crazy as hell. That all the stuff I just said can be true. And there are fans out there who are thinking, you know what? I'm not even going to watch this garbage. I'm not even going to watch this trash. This team that almost won the division last year, won 9 games, even though everything was bad, and the front office did exactly what we wanted, got exactly the kind of offensive coach we need, boosted the defensive line with a young, exciting player, drafted well, A-plus grades by virtually everybody. Even though all that's true, I'm not watching this trash. That is crazy.
Like, we think teams are going to suck. We think teams are going to be good, and they end up being, the opposite. But I hope they prove me wrong.
The preseason's so long in the NFL, like that also makes it like a tough conversation. I mean, these guys have been in camp since almost the middle, but the end of July. Like, some of these teams reported like July 18th. We're sitting here and we're touching up against September, and we still don't have games for more than a week. Like, that's part of the reason, like, the conversation. You're like, and for the Saints, their roster, their 53 was pretty much already put together when they got to camp.
Speaking of unseasoned chicken, jeez. Maybe not, though. This is what I always have to remind myself about the Saints. We fall a little.
But he like, T-Bob's doing it in real time. Like, his initial reaction is 53-man roster. Talk about boring as hell. And then he has that split second where he actually thinks about it, and he's like, well, actually, it's not boring. It's not boring at all. Like, the team is sweet. We have a relative, like, they're not sweet compared to, the Lions, but they're sweet compared to the idea that it's unseasoned chicken. I mean, you're talking about top 15 wide receiver. You're talking about top 5, top 10, secondary, whether it's Tyrann Mathieu, top 5 safety, whether it's Marshon Lattimore, top 5 defensive back. You have Demario Davis, who has played like a top 5 linebacker for the better part of a decade. You got a defensive line who, again, now you have Chase Young, who you can be excited about. Yeah, like, there are players to be excited about. This isn't a roster that is. We're not the New York Giants. Like, you look at the New York Giants, that's a roster that's unseasoned chicken. You look at some of these other teams, like the Chargers. The Chargers might be the most unseasoned chicken team in the entire NFL, besides Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert hasn't won nothing. Justin Herbert's way closer to Jay Cutler than he is to Phillip Rivers, I'll tell you that. That's a free hot take for the boys.
Little bit prey to thinking that the team is unexciting because the offense is. But, like, remove the offense, Jake, and just look at the defense, and, like, I get goosebumps. Like, the defense is awesome. You're the 6th best. You were the 9th best scoring defense 2 years ago. You're the 6th best scoring defense last year. You bring.
I know I'm going on a soapbox here, but how is the offense unexciting? We don't even know what they look like. We made a huge turnover with going from Carmichael to Kubiak in order to be exciting. Don't you think it's crazy to sit here and say, well, the offense is unexciting and point to last year when it's completely different? It's a completely different scheme, system. Everything's different. And it's like, well, I mean, yeah, look at how boring those games were last year. It's like, I agree, they were boring, which is the whole reason why we turned over Carmichael. Like the whole purpose. Like you're not hearing any, and that's another thing that drives me crazy. You're not hearing anyone say that about the Falcons. You're not hearing anyone say, well, that offense was boring. Oh, that offense was inept. And you're going to say, well, because they got new pieces. It's like, yes, exactly. We got new pieces, arguably the most important piece of changing an offense. The literal system. You're an offensive coordinator and a whole new offensive staff. That changes a system of an offense more than getting a quarterback, because the quarterback has to play within the system that's there. So I just don't understand how, well, I do understand. I went on a TED Talk to start the video explaining it, but I don't understand how people can say this offense is boring when we have not seen the offense and we made an enormous step to make it not boring. I mean, I think we can all agree in the preseason alone, like a lot of the Spencer Rattler drives, a lot of the stuff we celebrated, a lot of the plays, a lot of the new running attack, like a lot of the pre-snap motion and stuff. Like, it's obviously not the same system as last year. So how can we sit here and say it's boring?
Bring in a guy in Chase Young who has elite potential and looks like he's ready to fulfill that potential. So you got even better there.
Yeah.
Brian Brzee looks like the only good D lineman first-round draft pick that you've had over the last half decade or however long you've been trying to draft them for. He's an exciting young player. You trade for a solid interior run defender in Ridgeway yesterday. You still have Kalen Saunders, who is he on IR right now? But he's played.
I mean, trading for Ridgeway obviously means that Saunders' injury is more severe than people think.
Well, he's coming back from injury. Nathan Shepard. Cam Jordan's still there holding out. What is he now? And then you got that doesn't even get into Tyrann Mathieu, Marshon Lattimore, Paulson Adebo, Alontae Taylor. And then you got Demario Davis in the middle.
Oh, and Willie Gay, who was a monster in the preseason, and Pete Werner. Like, you listing all that stuff off, you're sitting here going like, this is a pretty exciting defense.
And Pete Werner's good. And he's been learning at the feet of him. Willie Gay Jr.'s been a solid addition this offseason. And again, Demario Davis. Like, enjoy. Do not let whatever pain you feel about Derek Carr or Dennis Allen or this offense in general, do not let it have you not enjoy what Demario Davis gives you every single Sunday. Because all it is psychopathic effort, all-out effort in a fight both on the field and a fight against Father Time himself, as somehow the man continues to not age. All he does is make plays every single Sunday, sideline to sideline, so fast, so violent, so explosive. And so, yeah, at least you're not one of these teams. Like, if you're the Patriots, you're just garbage everywhere.
Just ass.
Right? Yeah, you got bad on bad.
It's just gross. The Patriots, and then your uniforms suck.
Yeah.
Now that you're not good.
It's not even the Patriots. Like, it's a lot of teams. You look at the Giants. You look at the Chargers. You look at the Patriots, obviously. You look at some of those teams, and you're looking around the roster, and you're like, man, there ain't much here. There is not much to be excited about. Even like the Steelers. You look at a team like the Steelers compared to the Saints. There is some teams where dare I even say the Cowboys? You look at a team like the Cowboys, and you're looking around, and you're like, well, they're kind of top heavy. Like, yeah, they have CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, they have Micah Parsons, but they also have Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott. Like, they also lost Dan Quinn. They also have Mike McCarthy. Like, this isn't, and then you get away from CeeDee Lamb. It's like, well, this isn't much to be excited about. I mean, you're excited about Jake Ferguson, I guess, but the roster is not as bad as people make it seem. I'm certainly not sitting here saying it's a 12-win roster. It's an 11-win roster, but for a fan to look at the Saints roster and to look at the Saints' new coaching staff and the new scheme and all that stuff, and the fans' responses, I'm not even watching this. I'm not even tuning into the game. I'm not even wearing my merch. I'm taking down my Saints flag outside of my house. I think that's bananas.
What's the mascot? Is it Pete? Patriot Pete, the one snapping the ball?
Pete.
I don't know.
Isn't it Pat the Patriot? I think it's Pat the Patriot.
Okay, Pat,
I like
Pat makes
Pete
a little
better.
more sense.
Really?
Yeah, I like Pete.
Pete's a little country.
I know.
For like a New
Well,
England,
yeah.
like a
Makes
New
so much
England
more sense.
Patriot.
Look,
like
The alliteration with Pat the Patriot. I mean, that's
Yeah, what are we talking- I mean,
what
they
they
call
call
him
the
Patty
Pats.
Pete, Patty Patriot.
I like saying Pete much better than Pat. I like
Why not
Pat.
Paul?
The twang works on
Wait,
both.
why not
yeah,
Paul
I mean,
though? Why not Paul? Like Revere.
Paul Revere.
Yeah, like
Paul's
Paul.
not
Patriot
bad.
Paul.
I mean, it might
Patriot
actually
Paul.
be.
Patriot Paul makes way more sense.
I mean, he's snapping the football. He looks badass on the
yeah,
helmet.
go back to the old uniforms, bring back Patriot Paul the center. Then maybe you can get a little juice going. But like, at least you're not them. You know,
I do like
you're
the
not the
Patriots old school
Panthers,
uniforms.
where it just feels like an abject disaster, top to bottom. You have a top 5 defense in the NFL. And if Kubiak and Carr can get enough going offensively, well, you're going to win some games.
Hell
And
yeah.
that, in my opinion, is always more fun than losing games. So do not take the defense for granted. is all I'm
No,
saying.
don't, because the defense is going to keep you in every game. It's going to come down to, can the offense make a play? Can they make the play? Can they make a string of plays put together to put you in position to take the lead and hold the lead? Because the defense is going to do their part.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's why it's so troublesome when we have this conversation, because let's go through the different levels of the Saints offense right now.
All right.
Do you feel good about where they're at the receiver room?
I would say it's average. I would say it's C. I would say at the top, I'm very happy with Olave. I think as far as a number one, you could do a lot worse than Chris Olave. Rashid Shaheed, we'll see. I think he's super talented, but is he a true number 2? I don't know. Beyond that, I'm concerned. I mean, the receivers have been pretty bad. You know, this quartet of people we rolled out in the preseason, some of which aren't even on the team anymore, but the Equinemius St. Brown, Cedric Wilson, A.T. Perry, Bub Means, that whole group left a lot to be desired during the entirety of the preseason. So do I feel great about the 3? No. Do I feel great about the 4? No. You know, so but I would say at the top, I do feel good about it. I would say it's a similar to Atlanta, similar to them, where Atlanta probably feels great about Drake London. They don't feel as good about the rest of the room. So I'd say C, somewhere in the C.
No.
Being honest with yourself.
No. I mean, Olave's
Chris
it's
Olave's
at least,
great, but
it is at least you have a consistent 1,000-yard guy.
You
Did
have.
everybody say that in the NFL?
No, hell no.
no.
I'm
Chargers
asking,
can't
I'm
say that
asking
right now.
legitimately. Like I'm
The damn Falcons can't say that.
curious. Okay.
Chargers don't have that right now.
Your own division can't say that. The Falcons can't say that. The Panthers can't say that. Yeah, the Bucks can obviously say that. The Bucks should feel great about their weapons. But there's a ton. I mean, the Steelers can't say that. I mean, there's a ton of people, ton of teams. The Broncos, you know, like where the room is not good. The receiver room is not good. Some of those teams, their number 1 is not good. Like some of those teams, their number 1 is relatively average.
After Keenan Allen left.
So maybe a majority does, but you have a consistent 1,000-yard guy in Olave. But yes, besides that, it's
Okay.
meh.
Offensive line room, absolutely.
No, obviously not. That's a huge offensive line's bad.
That's a
Absolutely not.
disaster.
Quarterback room.
Yeah, you feel okay about that. You feel better about the quarterback room than you do about the wide receiver room. But I mean, I would say it's still average to slightly above average.
Promising young guys behind Derek Carr,
18th,
but
18th in the league,
Yes.
right? Like,
Right.
Okay. I'm all right with that.
you're paying the 18th quarterback in the league.
running back room right now.
You feel okay. I mean, again, you feel top heavy. You're okay. It's like, okay, I'm Alvin Kamara. I'm happy with him as my running back. I'm happy with him in this system. Jamal Williams looked really good in the preseason. Then if you throw Taysom in there, if you count that as your wide receiver room or your running back room, you know, again, you feel pretty chill. I mean, you look around the league, same thing. Look around the league. Would you rather what the Saints have, or would you rather what the Broncos have? Would you rather what the Giants have? Would you rather what the Vikings have? Would you rather what a lot of these teams, even the Steelers, like Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, or Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams? Like, is that I think Kamara is much better than Najee Harris. All right, so the Titans, like the Titans have Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. Is that much better than Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams? I would say no. Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook in Dallas? Absolutely not. So you could even look at some other players like Joe Mixon. It's like, would you rather have Joe Mixon or Alvin Kamara? I'd rather have Alvin Kamara. So I'd say our running back room is above average.
Now,
It just
with
depends
AK
on if
and the
Kamara's
contract
alive or not.
situation and
Yeah, if you factor in the contract situation, it is a bit messy. But
tight
Taysom
end
Hill
room.
adds a little excitement to the backfield.
Yeah, it depends on where you put Taysom.
I would put him
Like-
in that running back group.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
if
agree.
you put him in-
I think he's your third option. I think it's obvious now. It's AK, Jamal Williams, and then Taysom is going to get the bulk of those like specialty third
In
carries.
tight end room, that feels much better. But if you take him out, it doesn't feel
No,
great.
yeah, then that's boring again because it's just Juwan Johnson and Dallin Holker
And then Foster Moreau.
and Foster. Oh, that's right, and Foster. Okay, Foster. Okay. Tight end room, right?
But my point is, like, there's not a level on offense that gets you excited like over on the defense.
No.
No doubt. I mean, like we just said, the defense is top 5. The offense is treading water around that somewhere between 14 and 18 as far as like the total package. There's somewhere in there of like the 14th to 18th best offense, I would say, right now. Like obviously this could all change if Kubiak is a genius, but looking at it right now, I'd be comfortable with anywhere in that territory if you told me like, the 15th best offense, 16th best offense, something like that. Some of the like offensive line is a huge problem for sure, but the top end of all of our personnel groups, running back, wide receiver, even tight end, like you could do worse than the combination of Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, Dallin Hooker, Taysom Hill. You could for sure do worse than that. Is it spectacular? No, it's not spectacular, but it's okay.
The defense, all 3 levels, we could have great conversations about how
Sure.
good you feel about all 3.
The defense, all 3 levels, I think right now are an A. And that's crazy with how bad the defensive line was last year. But I am absolutely stoked. I'd not think I'd be saying stoked today, but I'm absolutely stoked about the idea of Carl Granderson, Brian Brzee, Cam Jordan, and Chase Young on that front. If Cam Jordan slides inside and we do this kind of NASCAR, bit of a smaller front, I think that's incredible. Chase Young alone. Chase Young is a 24-year-old who has all the potential in the world and right now looks like Reggie White. Go to the linebackers. A. I would say Demario Davis, Willie Gay, Pete Werner. Okay, I put them against almost anyone in the league. Secondary, A. I would put that against any secondary in the league. So, yeah, your offense is absolutely not going to be the same there. But
levels. We could give you multiple players on all 3 levels that you trust right now. On offense, I'm going to be real honest with you. There's 2 players that I trust on the Saints offense right now.
Eric.
I think it's more than that. I mean, you got to trust Olave. You got to trust. I mean, I wouldn't even throw McCoy in there, but I guess you can trust what he's going to give you, even though it's just relatively average. I trust Kamara if he's on the field because of the system. I know he can do what's being asked of him. That's the trust I have in him. Is that if he's out there, I fully trust that he can run the routes, catch the ball, get in space. He can do all that, and he can run this scheme that we're asking him to run. Do I trust him to run in between the tackles and get 4.5 yards of carry? No. But good news, we're not going to ask him to do that.
McCoy.
Yep.
And I do trust Carr to be average. But I understand I understand not putting him in that trust bucket.
And
Chris
Olave.
Olave. That's it.
Yeah.
You got to kind of trust Taysom. I mean, Taysom has been as effective as possible when he has the ball. How impactful he'll be, probably not super impactful because he doesn't get the ball that much. But you do have to trust when he is called upon, he can absolutely be efficient and be I mean, it's hard to say, like, I don't trust Taysom Hill. He's been as dynamic as any person could be, given the small sample size that he gets per game.
That's it right now.
I hope Alvin can get back.
Like, I would love to throw Foster in that conversation, but I don't know how much Juwan Johnson's going to play. I don't
You can't trust Foster. Were you not in the Jacksonville Jaguars game?
know if they're going to be 12 personnel. I don't know.
Foster dropping that touchdown.
I guess the Jags. It was Jags, right?
Yeah.
Is that the difference between a 10 and 7? I mean,
Yeah.
Yes. No, well, that, like, it's, I don't want to get on this soapbox, but if Foster catches that pass and Derek Carr doesn't get hurt in Green Bay, it's an 11-win team. 11-win NFC South champion. If Foster just catches the pass, we're a 10-win team, NFC South champion. Like, it's crazy how much of a razor's edge we were walking between this, where fans are saying, I'm not watching this game, from hanging a banner. Like, how crazy would that juxtaposition be if we're hanging a banner? We're hanging an NFC South divisional champion banner. Simultaneously, fans are like, I'm not watching this crap. Hate this team.
how different is that? If they're 10 and 7, they win the division. Yikes. I mean, like seriously actually think about that. And then recognize how razor thin the margins are in the NFL.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, if he catches that, you win the division, and who knows how people talk about Dennis Allen and Derek Carr. Because then that
Allen, I think someone double check me, but I'm pretty sure I think Allen would be 500. I think he'd be exactly 500 as a head coach for the Saints. And Carr would have won the South in his first season and won. But that's exactly why I always say, don't be so baked into those results, because Foster Moreau dropping that pass is kind of the reason why people are so down on Dennis Allen and Derek Carr, because him dropping that pass is kind of bolstering this narrative that Dennis Allen can't win and Derek Carr can't win. But neither one of them had any control over Foster Moreau dropping that pass. And it's just weird because this whole narrative have been completely dispelled by Foster dropping or by Foster catching that. But when you're so caught up in the results, or you're so caught up in, well, we had 9 wins. Well, we had this. Well, we didn't win the division. Well, we did all that. It kind of skews what actually is happening. And I mean, we try really hard here to not get caught up in that. That's why we do, the fake box scores every week. We go over box scores and we talk about what box scores are kind of fake, or which, what wins are not really good wins, what losses aren't really bad losses. Like, we do a lot of that kind of work to kind of show that there's so much more that goes into all that. There's so much more. I mean, think about the Packers game. Great example. If we win against Green Bay, think about what it does for both teams. Jordan Love and Green Bay probably isn't everyone's darling. I don't even think they make the playoffs. The Saints do make the playoffs. The Saints went on the road against Green Bay. But because they didn't win that game, who gets the blame? Derek Carr. Derek Carr wasn't even on the field. If all you're looking at is L in the win-loss column, and all you're looking at is 9 wins, and all you're looking at is second in the division, and you're sitting here saying, see, Derek Carr can't win nothing. And then you're like, well, I mean, he wasn't even in the game. Like, when he was in the game, it was 17-0. Like, Rashid Shaheed didn't have a catch that game. There's a lot that that's Pete Carmichael for you. There's a lot of other stuff happening around the big numbers that you see in the box score. That's why you have to be smarter. You have to think outside the box score in today's NFL.
6-game finish, which, this is all logically, this is a fallacy, right? Because, like, if that happens and maybe everything changed, the butterfly effect, that maybe you don't have those final 6 games. But if you went 10-7, won the division, and had the final 6 games that the offense did, everybody would be really pumped, actually, probably.
Yeah, and isn't that the saddest thing you've ever heard? That a Foster Moreau drop and a Derek Carr shoulder injury in Green Bay is the difference in what T-Bob's saying. What he's saying is totally true. But that's the difference in everybody being super pumped. That's why I'm telling you, you gotta, the NFL is so different now. You have to look at this different. You have to think differently. You have to think outside of the box. You have to dig into the analytics. You cannot just go to defensive stats, sort by passing yards given up per game, and claim someone's a top 5 defense like Kurt Benkert. Like, we really are on a different level here, and it's because of this line of thinking. It's because of seeing through the smoke, seeing through the big grabby headline or the big grabby statistic.
Right now, at least a bit.
Daniel, we're talking, by the way, just offense that he trusts. The defense, almost everybody that's a starter, I feel good about.
Yeah.
So no, we're not saying just those 2 players on the team. No, I mean, come on, Demario Davis and Tyron.
Yeah, you got to trust everyone on the defense pretty much, except whoever ends up being the other safety and probably some interior defensive linemen. Everyone else I trust.
Matthew and the entire DB room, I think, is fantastic. Yeah. And Cam Jordan and Granderson. No. The defense, you're in a good spot, Daniel. We're talking offense here. Yeah. If you can give me a third player that you trust without a question, you're like, hey, I got something on the line here. I'm going to trust this third player. I don't know who that would be, because it would be different probably for everybody if they had an answer.
I would still say Taysom. Taysom would be my third for sure.
I trust him if you utilize him right, though.
And I trust
his trust
Kubiak to
comes
do
with
better
the
with
coaches.
that. I trust Kubiak to do better with that. You saw some of it in preseason. He's definitely got bigger plans for the regular season.
He is a unicorn. Use him as such.
But even that's the plan. Like I don't understand this. How we're still saying things that is a Pete Carmichael problem. We're still saying, well, if you use him, don't you think Kubiak's going to do that? Like, we're still saying things. We're still saying, well, the offense can't start fast. Well, the offense can't score in the first possession. Well, the offense isn't creative. Well, the offense is boring. We're acting like Pete Carmichael is still blowing bubbles and sitting in the offensive room. He's not. He's gone, guys. Breaking news: Pete Carmichael was fired. Breaking news: Clint Kubiak's the new offensive coordinator for the Saints. Breaking news: Andrew Janocko is the new quarterback coach for the New Orleans Saints. Like, all those guys are gone. It's been months. It's been months. Why are we still talking like Pete Carmichael is calling plays? I mean, Pete might not know. I'll give you that. Pete might show up at the Superdome September 8th. He may try and walk in the doors, and my God, I hope they kick his ass out of there. I hope they tell him, hey, brother, put an egg in your shoe and beat it. Like, get on out. No way Pete Carmichael could work a SeatGeek app to find his tickets to even get in the dome anyways. But, like, we're asking a lot of questions that have already been answered. And what I think is going to happen is, I think in week 1, we're going to answer a lot of these questions, like, on the screen. We're going to see this offense look pretty good. We're going to see the full breadth of this offense, and you're going to immediately hear a switch in the entire New Orleans sports media. And you're going to all of a sudden hear, like, well, if the offense can do this every week, we can win 10 games. You're going to hear that. You're going to hear, well, can you believe it? We were doing pre-snap motion. We were doing play action. We were doing this, and this. Derek Carr threw for 280 yards. Alvin Kamara had 8 catches. We ran for 104. Kamara ran for 100 yards. We didn't have anyone over 80 yards last season. You're going to hear a lot of that, and people are going to be absolutely shocked. I'm not going to be shocked at all. I'm not going to be shocked whatsoever. Will I be hungover? Yeah, I'll be hungover, but I'm not going to be shocked. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
And they did, like, Pete Carmichael. I don't know what happened. Because Taysom Hill's one of the nicest humans I've ever met, so I know he didn't do anything wrong. But I don't know. I don't know where the insecurity came that he would not put him in the best position to succeed.
I don't think he knew. I don't think he knew how to utilize him. I think it's the easiest, like, what happened, who done it of all time. I mean, it's right up there with Casey Anthony and OJ. Like, we know what happened. We know who done it. Pete Carmichael just flat out was not good enough, wasn't creative enough to figure out how to use Taysom. So he said, let's strictly use Taysom as this, like, QB power running. That's it. That's all he did. I mean, I've said this example a million times. He was so dumb that he had Taysom Hill running RPOs with read options with Adam Prentice. That's all you need to know.
But it was never consistent. And then, like, there was metrics. If Taysom gets this amount of carries and this amount of yards, the Saints win. And he's like,
do y'all remember the game where it was Derek Carr, his first game back? I think it was the Bucs game after he got hurt, or it might have been after the Vikings game. But one of those games, his first game back, and in the first possession, Pete ran a Taysom Hill, Derek Carr read option. Y'all remember that? Where Derek Carr, they faked the handoff to Derek Carr, and Taysom had the quarterback sneak. That's all you need to know, ladies and gentlemen.
That's cool. I don't care.
I think it was the Browns game last year where I even gave him a lot of credit for finally leading Taysom, and you were like, yeah, but it took a whole half of, like, failure. Like, the weather and everything was such a, why did you not get there earlier? I don't know. Pete was just beholden to his old system. He was a little stuck in his ways, and he even showed slight growth at the end.
Minus a little.
Very, very stuck in his ways. Which
it's just like now you have an offense coordinator that, because of where he came from, because the 49ers are going to have 2 to 3 players that can play multiple positions at a high level, like an NFL pro level.
Yeah.
They always do. And that's what makes them dangerous, because you don't fall into tendencies. You have no idea you don't know if Debo's going to do A, B, and C. We've used this example before, but 20 years ago in the NBA,
your center was a very specific thing. Your point guard was a very specific thing. Now, you don't have that. Your center can also be the guy who brings the ball up. You know, your point guard can also be your point guard can be 6'10". Like it's different. The NFL has gone through that exact same thing where George Kittle can be a tight end, but he can also be an extension of your offensive line. He can also be your fullback. He can also be a wide receiver. You know, Kyle Juszczyk can be your fullback, but he can also be your tight end. He can also be an offensive lineman. Deebo Samuel can be your wide receiver, but he can also be a running back. He can also be a tight end. Like that is the NFL now. That's exactly what's happening. And you're seeing that with like Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey's a running back, but he can also be your wide receiver. You know, so that's why when people say, well, the Saints don't really have that great of receivers, you have to factor in that we're going to run multiple packages with 2 tight ends and 2 running backs. So you're going to have, if I told you your wide receivers are Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, and Taysom Hill, it's like, well, those 4 are actually pretty sweet. And that is how they're going to utilize these players. Like Alvin Kamara is going to be basically your 3rd receiver, maybe even your 2nd receiver. Taysom Hill will be like your 3rd running back. So your running back room, if you say it's Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, and Jordan Mims, it's like, okay, that's a little different than Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, and Taysom Hill, right? So you got to remember that too with this is that it's not as simple as, you know, player dash position group. Taysom will be a running back. He will also be a fullback. He will also be a tight end. It's just how it is. Kamara will be the running back as much as he is a receiver. So, you know, the NFL is certainly moving that way. I think we're seeing that a lot of really good teams do that. A lot of really good teams, you know, that is how it is. So just keep that in mind too when you're talking about these position groups.
Kittle can do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
C-Mac can do A, B, and C. Like we could go down the list of players. Yeah, you might be running back, tight end, receiver, but I'll be damned if they're coming at you from the same position 2 plays in a row.
And you won't reach.
I'm on a different
You don't have
level.
the personnel to reach the heights that San Fran does because all those guys are so.
You can be the great value version
yes,
and do
that's all
yourself
we
some
need.
favors.
That's all we need. Let's be the Kirk.
Exactly. If we're the great value version of the 49ers and we have if I told them, which I think they will see after week 1, it's my prediction. If I said we are the great value version of San Francisco and we're the 14th best offense in the NFL. If I told them that, I think all of a sudden a lot of predictions would go from the Saints being a 7-win team to the Saints being a 9-win team. And we're just ahead of it. The writing's on the wall, you know, of how this offense is going to operate.
Kirkland brand version.
Yeah, let's don't do great value. Let's go a little bit step up.
Let's do the Kirkland brand Niners offense. That'd be great.
Fun fact about Kirkland's. So olive oil is one of the things that we should all be eating. Get rid of seed oil, canola oil, vegetable oils, soybean oil, all that stuff. Sunflower oil, get rid of it. Olive oil, eat tons of it, but be very careful where you're getting your olive oil. If it's a blend, if it's from multiple countries, you can't really tell exactly how pure it is. A really good option for really good olive oil is Kirkland's Signature cold pressed, I believe. You can get like liters of it for like $25. It is single sourced. It is a single farm. The farm is on the bottle, so you can track it so you know where it's coming from. It is not cut with a lot of olive oils are cut with canola oil. Kirkland's Signature olive oil. Take it from me. This is not an ad for Kirkland's. I've never stepped foot in a Kirkland's, but I do Amazon their olive oil, and that's the olive oil that I eat. So look, I want everyone to be happy and healthy. Okay, happy and healthy. So get rid of the seed oils, get rid of canola oil, switch to olive oil, and don't go buy the $40 a bottle organic. Just go Kirkland's Signature olive oil. And Kirkland's, if anyone's from Kirkland's listening, if you want to sponsor the boy, give me a shout.
I mean, look, somebody else is talking about losing the 18-0 lead to the Packers and the missed field goal. I mean, the Saints were basically 11-6 last year, guys. You know,
they were. That's. I know he's being facetious, word of the day, but that is not a wrong thing to say because like we just talked about the results thing. Like they kind of were an 11-6 team. That capabilities were 11-6, which is why it's insane to go from a team that was capable of 11-6. And you could say this about a lot of teams where it's like, well, you could say any team is where there's a bunch of coin flip games, whatever. Go back. That's a good exercise. You go back and look at some teams, and you're like, this team is capable, because it's inverse as well. Some teams that, like the Vikings, the year the Vikings went 13-4 or whatever, 13-3, and they won like 9. They were like 9-0 in games that were 3 points or less. So you could take that inverse and say, yeah, they're a 13-win team, but they're also capable of being like a 5-win team. And then what happened the next year? They were total ass. That was the year they got dog walked in the playoffs. Next year, they're total ass. So that's a good exercise to do. The Saints were capable of being an 11-win team. So how does a team that was capable of being an 11-win team improve on all kind of different areas, including coaching staff? How could that team possibly drop as low as a 3-win team, 2-win team, 4-win team that we've seen some people predict? It does not add up.
Yeah. Never mind. Am I emerging out of this segment thinking the Saints are going to win the South and be good?
You should.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm a little more excited than I was 10 minutes ago, to be fair, for whatever that's worth. Nice job, boys.
I think it's shocking for, obviously I cover the Saints every day. Obviously we have been saying this exact same thing for months. And it's nuts that we are a week away from the season, and we've got these kind of revelations happening where it's like, well, actually, now that I think about it, like, what were y'all doing during training camp? What were y'all, and I'm not even talking about just this show, but I'm saying everyone, and this includes fans, where this is not a complicated algorithm. This is not a complicated, beautiful mind situation to see the path of the Saints being better and to see the path of the Saints being a team that could absolutely compete for the NFC South. So I'm happy to see people kind of coming across the line where we are, but it is shocking that it's taken this long.
Nice job, Chad.
You know
Let's
what?
go. Who dat, baby?
I will get fully behind you if you trust what you have, you don't try to do too much with what you don't have,
Yeah.
and you stay consistent in your play calling. But consistent doesn't mean predictable. It just does not mean that. Consistent
Obviously.
doesn't have to be something where you're stale and vanilla.
No.
Consistent can be, we have these playmakers, we're going to live or die by these playmakers, but doing different things.
I agree.
Wow,
There you go. Boom. Long one. Thank y'all for sticking around. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Good stuff, man. We are close. We are real close to the season. Hope you're as excited as I am. It's going to be fun. I will see you, ladies and gentlemen, in the next video.